right, everybody, welcome to the June 14th meeting, 2023 Historic District Commission. The board's actions in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, this issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. I'm going to make introductions. Let's see, Joanna Landis, our alternate, is not here. Dr. Dan Brown.
Good evening.
And Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
Yes, Reagan Rudig.
Good evening.
And my vice chair, Margot Doring.
Hello.
My name is John Wyckoff. This planning board rep is Nick Cracknell.
Planning Department.
Planning Department.
Good evening.
You've done that before.
Yeah.
City Council, Rich Blaylock.
Evening.
Mr. David Adams.
Good evening.
And Karen Bouffard.
Good evening.
So, before we get started, we have a little something that, a little personal business that we're going to do here. So we'll call it new old business or old new business. And this is just a slight honoring of Mr. Cracknell next to me, this is his last meeting, I guess. And seeing in the paper a few days ago, I noticed that the town of Exeter was having a celebration for their UPS driver who moved on after 11 years with the Exeter route. And somehow that was on the front page of the paper. But Mr. Cracknell has actually been on this board for 12 years and 5 months and about 10 days, I'd say, approximately. So with that in mind, I would just like to say that, God, he's been great for us. He's been very helpful. He has institutional knowledge that it's going to be a shame to lose the knowledge. I mean, I think that Nick knows every number on every street in the Historic District Commission. I think he knows the people that live there and who lives next door. So it's quite amazing, actually. And he has done the work of 2 or 3 different people. So it's going to be a sad day, and we'll get by. Next month, we'll see. But I just want to say it's been great knowing you very much. So if there's anybody on the board first that would like to say something.
Reagan, you've been here.
Yeah,
Second senior member. No, I was totally floored to get the news that you'll no longer be with us, because I honestly don't know what we're going to do without you. You've worked tirelessly for us, for the city. You have a passion for historic buildings, which everyone here can appreciate, and you're constantly on the ball and making sure that everything that happens to any historic building, whether it's inside the district or out, is the right thing. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Like I said, you've done so much, you've put forward so much, and we're gonna feel it. We're gonna definitely feel that loss of energy that you bring, and knowledge, and the motivation and desire to do what's best.
well said. Anybody else on this side?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Nick, you're like a brother, and I know that we're going to maintain a relationship in the future, and I'll miss you at these events, and you did bring a great deal of expertise, and you're going to be sorely missed, and hopefully you can, who knows, maybe you'll find your way back here, but we'll have a few drinks, I'm sure, in the future.
Dan, would you like to say anything?
As one of the newest members, and only having had a chance to work with him for less than a year, it just has really blown me away on his extensive knowledge, not only of the historic district, but the workings of City Hall, the workings of the planning department, the workings of this committee itself. And he's been a big part of making this committee effective, organized, and in a very pleasant way that's not only helped us, but I think has helped many of the candidates that have come before him. So he's really been an amazing find for not only the city, but for the candidates that, the public that comes before this committee. So Nick, good luck. We're really going to miss you.
I'm going to miss your sense of humor. Thank you for helping me when I first arrived and all the help you've given us over the years.
Anybody over here?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I think I speak for my year and a half serving with you has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot from you. I know anyone in Portsmouth that's built anything in the last 12 years in the historic district appreciates you and your efforts. I don't think we're going to know how much we miss you until you're gone, but I hope it's not goodbye. I hope to see you later, and we wish you luck on your next adventure. But thank you.
Anybody else?
If you don't mind, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had the pleasure of sitting here, sometimes there, for 22 years, not all at once. And I can say without any question whatsoever that the commission has never been supported the way you have supported this commission in that time. It's been extraordinary. It makes it not exactly a joy to come here, but it makes it palatable to come here. You get sometimes to want to come here. On a personal note, I don't know what is going to happen now when I see something downtown that I think is crazy and I snap a picture of it and I say, you're going to be getting messages from me in your new situation because I don't know who else to contact. And this is probably the silliest thing to say, but it really is the deepest part of how I feel about Mr. Cracknell. Is I play an online game. In online games, you frequently have little constructed avatars. Mine is Nick. Wearing a pink suit with a white wolfskin cap, but mine is Nick. Yeah, honest to God, I get to play with you every week. So,
Getting weird.
it's weird. It's the truth, but it's weird.
I've only been on this commission since 2020, but it's been wonderful working with you. But I have worked with you since you came here day one to Portsmouth, and you helped me immeasurably on a number of different issues and projects, and I will forever miss that. I hope we have the opportunity to work together again.
Would somebody in the public? We have a few chairs, certainly. Vince.
I have to give my name and address.
For the record.
I've known Nick a long time, and I've known him as a friend and a colleague when I was in one of those chairs. And I've always respected his knowledge, his enthusiasm, his ability to create, and I really, really think that it's going to be a struggle without him. I think it's Amesbury's gain, and I wish him well there. I think that he will be a real asset to them. I have always loved conversations with Nick, although conversations is perhaps a stretch. If you've talked with Nick, you know that he expresses himself vehemently, and but I've always learned from him and have respected him immensely. So best of luck in the future, Nick.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Beckstead.
I'm going to say my name and address. I'm just accustomed to it. So Rick Beckstead, 1395 Islington Street. When I first got word of Nick actually leaving, I can't imagine. You know, Nick and I, we don't always agree on things, but I'll tell you what, if you're going to have somebody that's going to be representing the city, and I've partaken in many charrettes with Nick, there is not a person in the world that I think represents Portsmouth the way that Nick did. Always courteous, always respectful. He represented the city in a way that needs to be represented, respectfully. When people didn't agree with things, he handles himself well. He handles people very well. And I don't think there is going to be a person. I think it's going to come down to what I've been saying for the last several years. We've had several people that have either left Prescott Park, or we've had people that have left the rec department and everything. It's not going to take one person to replace Nick. It's going to take at least two, because you are invaluable, and you will be sorely missed. And I am very sorry to see you go, and wish you the very best. And hopefully, at some point, maybe we'll get together and have a chat.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
I'm not announcing my name or my street either. Nick, you have the courage and the grace and the knowledge that has helped to keep this city glued together in so many instances. And you are a vital part of the planning department. And for the life of me, I don't know how this happened. I wish you weren't going. I see months and months and months of all of us struggling to ask the hard questions, like Mr. Adams said. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you've done for the historic district. And I wish you the best in Amesbury. They're very, very lucky. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Mayor.
Diggle McCachran, 230 Thornton Street. Just want to take the time to recognize somebody that is always a joy to run into in the stairwell. It's incredibly disappointing to hear that you're leaving Portsmouth, but I'll leave that for beers at another time. What I would like to comment on is your style, and fellow Councilor Lombardi says, sometimes it's difficult to, conversations, you can be very excited. I view that as passion. But you subscribe to a theory that you set ideology aside when you're trying to make a decision, that you really delve into the details of any project, and then you listen intently. And a lot of people on the dais, through City Hall, myself included, listen so that we can respond. But you listen to understand, and that's something that is a amazing quality that not everybody is blessed with, but everyone that knows you tries to emulate. So it's incredibly just sad to know that I'm not going to run into you as much on the stairway in the immediate future. And I have something for you, if you'll entertain this. It's a doorstop. So as the city of the open door, it takes a lot to keep doors open. You've kept an enormous amount of doors open in your time, doors to our past, but recognizing also doors to our future. That old buildings need to have some new buildings sometimes next to them to really appreciate that type of architecture. You're an incredible asset, and you've kept the door open for countless people, and really our history. But I hope that you take this down to a city I'm not going to name, and you think of it as a reminder that the city of Portsmouth, our doors are always open to you, and I hope that one day you can come back and be a part of this community that you have done so much to build and make it is. We are, I guess, the number 2 city in America to raise a family. You had a big part in that. So thank you, Mr. Cracknell. Thank you, Dagmar.
Yeah, as one who looks at YouTube quite a bit, looking at the number one state in the country. Lo and behold, it was New Hampshire. I'm not sure exactly what their parameters, it's all real estate knowledge, education, things like that. But New Hampshire was number one state, and we all know what's the number one city in New Hampshire. I mean, it just goes without saying. Now, and since I do have a couple more minutes.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Right. Well, I just want to thank everybody that is in the room and has spoken. I've learned a tremendous amount in my 12 years here, and I'm only as good as the people around me. And I think what's come to me maybe difficult in a challenging way is how important it is to reflect, on that passion, whether it's vehement conversation or just pure passion. I've certainly made, as most of you know, missteps and mistakes along the way. We all make them. But I've really made an effort, and I think I think hearing some of the comments tonight are really a testimony to some of the fruit of my effort to be more collaborative, to be more open, to really facilitate genuine conversation, mutual respect, and try and gain the credibility that's needed in a job like this to take on what's increasingly a challenging set of planning issues and problems and opportunities for the city of Portsmouth. You can't do this. An open door is really important, but I've learned you need an open hand when there's somebody on the other side of that door. And I was probably one of the many people with folded arms a lot of the time when you open that door. And that just doesn't serve us well. And I think for me, that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned being here and going through all the growing pains that we've gone through together. When I got here, the North End was the Garden Hilton and 100 Market Street. And they were just starting the hotel at so-called Phase 2 Port Walk. The entire North End, with the exception of Ferguson, has been either approved, built, or under construction. So that was a challenge, but it's also a fantastic opportunity for everybody in Portsmouth to think about what this board, this commission, is going to do in the next 10 years, because we've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours in the 12 years dealing with the North End. And it's just about finished. Whether it worked out well or not, it is what it is. We tried our best. But I think there are other challenges for the Historic Commission that need to be reassessed and looked at now that the bandwidth is freed up. But I just can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to be here, the honor to have this job, the honor to be with so many talented people in Portsmouth. That's your biggest resource, is the depth of the talent pool in this city. And it's taught me a tremendous amount, more than I could ever learn in an academic institution, just rubbing shoulders with so many smart people. And that's how we're going to solve our problems, is unfolding our arms, opening our hands, having conversation that's open, genuine, and building a long-term relationship. That's the solution to all our many challenges. So I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and I hope the person that's sitting here after me is going to be able to deploy that same approach. So thank you.
So I'm not going to say anything, with the exception of, this is from all of us on the board. This is an 1892 map of downtown Portsmouth.
Excellent.
And you
Excellent.
can look at it.
I will.
And say, I wish I were back there.
I will do that every day.
You want me to put it
Till
against the wall?
Till I'm back here.
I'll do that, yeah.
Seriously, I'm going to miss Starbucks. I'm going to miss Market Square. It's going to be very hard not to be here, but
Well, we hope that you still come back.
yeah, I'm not far away. I had to laugh. John put the agenda here from my first meeting, and it says, I'm sitting here, but there's no excitement here. There's not a note that, other than my attendance, that I'm here. So hopefully I've exceeded your expectations.
Well, you could probably frame that, too.
Yeah. So Rick, I hope I've learned to become courteous and respectful in a better manner than when I arrived, and I've certainly tried to do that. It also means a lot that you're here, Deglin's here, Paige is here. We've had a lot of interactions over the years. I really appreciate your words.
All righty, I guess we have to get to work. Number one, administrative approvals. Nick?
Get to work.
Okay. So 135 Daniel Street, this was on our agenda last week, and what we didn't have was an indication where that termination vent was located. I'm just looking at this for the first time. Isaac put this together for today. So that's the corner of Chapel and Daniel. That's the Connie Bean.
Yep.
So there's where there are already penetrations on that wall, but that's the location where that, I think it's a copper vent, but let's go down here.
We don't have any dimensions really, but
The dimensions of it, it looks like it's about 8 inches.
Yeah, it's a 6-inch pipe.
6 inch.
Yeah, so about an 8-inch flange or vent cap. I'm sure it doesn't look like that on the outside. Let's hope not.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah.
dangerous.
Or I'll be glad it's my last meeting.
Do we have any idea at all how far it extends from the face
What?
of the building?
Doesn't look like it, Dave. What should it be, and let's say it.
Well, it's been my experience that there's,
Yes,
an
sir.
angle. I'm not really sure what this
Barton,
angle
give
is.
us a number.
Yeah.
How many inches does that need to protrude off the building wall? It's not going to,
6 inches?
no.
5.5.
That much?
I'm not a mechanical engineer.
I don't-
But do we not have a
No.
cut sheet of the
No,
actual?
I don't see
no,
one.
we don't.
That's the
then-
key.
I'm going to shoot my mouth off here, but I would say that in this location, it ought to be the most pedestrian-friendly thing that
Exactly.
could possibly
yeah.
be put there. And I don't have any reason to be encouraged to think that.
How about you do this, if you would? I'll take care of this tomorrow, and if it doesn't meet that standard, it'll be back here in a month.
See?
Yeah, we certainly would like to see something small and flush,
I know what
if
you-
possible.
We're on the same page.
So-
Yeah, outside traffic.
Trust me.
And
Okay.
historic.
Cast iron,
Yeah.
smooth
Well, we'll-
ground, indestructible.
All right, so I'll make that happen. Or it'll be back here.
Thank you.
Okay, 18 Walden, this came here and we had the option 1 and option 2, and we weren't sure what the preference was. They did go to the BOA. I'm scrolling down here. Pretty sure this is the one. They had one under the deck and then one on the side. They went to the BOA for the one on the side, so we said, okay, the side's fine, but you need to show us what you're going to screen it with. And they did provide, unless it's on a separate sheet.
It was,
Could be.
By
It's loaded
email
later.
today.
Oh, you got it in the email, so I have it on do you need me to pull it up? It's on a
It's
separate,
a simple picket frame.
are you good with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, simple lattice.
I'll have to open a different file. All right. 4664 Maplewood. I think this one's pretty straightforward. What we didn't have was a screen shown. I don't even think we brought it here because it was incomplete. So that's the screen. I asked Isaac, and he must have sent it out in that separate email, where it's located. So you've got the former Stady, 238 Deer Street, and the garage and the new building at 4664 on Deer Street. That little alleyway, you guys all clear where it is? There's a little L, goes in about 3 feet. That's where these condensers are situated. They're really not visible from anywhere unless you're in the alleyway, but he's still going to screen them.
It's cute.
It was good.
Okay?
It's got
That was
potted
it.
plants on it.
I think we had 17 Prey on here. I just want to tell you, on 17 Prey, they did work. We approved this project to do window replacement on the back addition of that old house. The addition's probably pretty old. But they took off all the aluminum siding, which they weren't here for, and they got clapboards underneath. The clapboards had scarf joints. They took the clapboards off. Again, this was all done outside the permit. They were then stopped, and then they asked whether they, what they wanted butt jointed cedar clapboards to go on this back addition to the main house. And I said, you're going to need to come here if you're not going to scarf the new cedar they're putting on. I doubt it was cedar scarf, but I'm not sure. I haven't been there. So they're not here tonight because I think they're scarf joining the new clapboards as a replacement in kind. So that's what that was all about. A lot about nothing.
God bless them.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay.
That's it.
Yep. You vote on those?
Okay, so we have all four, and nobody's recused themselves, so I'm looking for a motion.
So moved?
With that one stipulation?
The first one.
Yep.
Yep.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? There we have it. So we have public hearings, old business. This is the petition of Portsmouth Housing Authority owner for property located at 444 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to existing structures, replace the windows on both structures as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 102 as Lot 54 and lies within the General Residence B and Historic District. And who's here to present this? Again.
Looks like no one, but I think we can do this. We did the doors a month ago. This came in and there was no one here at the last meeting. They initially were doing doors and windows, and they didn't have the window application complete until now. We didn't know whether they were doing all the windows. They gave us the cut sheet. The guy was supposed to be here.
Of course.
And
I think they're doing all the windows on the
If we
whole.
do anything on this, I have to recuse myself, just
Okay.
FYI.
It
My
looks-
understanding is all the windows are being replaced with the windows that were on the cut sheet. And they've just added the pictures of the building.
The style appears to be similar in
Yeah.
terms of the panes and so on. It's just, I don't know what the material is. These are vinyl, and I don't know if it's, the existing ones are vinyl or not.
And I don't know.
They look vinyl, but I could be wrong. Mr. Adams, did you have?
I do not know. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, the reality is we need a new building here, so it doesn't really matter if they're vinyl or aluminum.
Given
You
the
need a new
nature of the
building.
architecture of the building, I
Yeah.
don't think it's relevant in my determination.
Seems like it's a replacement in kind.
Yeah.
Close enough, yeah, so
Okay.
I think you could vote on this.
So is there anybody in the public that would like to speak about this building? Two buildings, actually.
Oh, let me look. Nope.
Okay. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're looking for a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second?
Okay. Findings of facts and all that good stuff.
Okay, findings of fact are that it conserves and enhances the property values and is compatible, it's a compatible design with the surrounding properties.
All righty. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? So there you go, City of Portsmouth Housing Authority.
Have to say they did a bang-up job on the resetting of the stairs or the recovering of the stairs and the railings, the previously approved work. It looks some smart.
Yeah, does look good. All righty. So now we have the work session, new business. And this work session is requested by Novacure Incorporated owner for property located at 64 Vaughan Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of a rooftop pavilion on the existing structure as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 126 as Lot 1 and lies within Character District 5 Downtown Overlay and Historic Districts. Who here is to present this?
Are we
You want to go
going
down
down?
for work session?
Oh, yeah, why not?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself in as much as I'm not going to be able to vote on this because of entrapments, entanglements. So they probably should stay out of the work session also.
You're entangled.
I am, slightly.
Entrapment.
Could be either. No, I'm going to hang.
Welcome.
So my name is Dean Smith. I'm the Associate Director of North American Facilities for Novacure.
Okay.
And so the purpose of this work session tonight is to discuss some options for adding a roof pavilion to the existing structure at 64 Vaughan Mall. In the package that I provided for this meeting, the very first page was to indicate what has already been approved. So the structure that's currently shown on the screen is what is physically approved as of today. So this roof appurtenance for the elevator structure and even egress here has been approved. So originally we were looking at doing a deck on between that, but then the thought was about doing a full roof structure itself. So in this design there were two proposals, and they're just rough sketches at this point, but one was for what we're calling Pavilion A, or Option A, which shows just a sloped roof on that. And Option B is a roof that has a flat top to it. Now, the footprint was going to be the same. So the very last page of this package shows the footprint was not going to deviate depending on which one we were working towards. The preference from Novacure's point of view is the one with the flat top. And the reasons for that are a couple. One, it gives kind of a symmetry because of the flat part that, actually, if you can scroll down to the other one. Yeah, keep going down, there you go.
There we go.
The flat top of that kind of will match the roof appurtenance that's already approved. And the slope of that roof will match the slope from that. So if you actually scroll down one more, you'll see a cutaway from this, so that when if we build it this way, we create a symmetry for both structures. The other advantage of this is having that flat top, if you will, it will not be glass, it'll be a roof structure, so that one, you can put our mechanicals in there and make them a little bit more pleasant to view from the inside, and also provides a little touch of shade on that. If we're going to have a glass structure in other portions, having that top part with a little bit of shade will be beneficial. The other advantage to this is that the slope of the pitched roof will actually make the side walls almost a foot shorter, so that, if you're looking out onto the left side specifically, that wall will be almost a foot shorter if we went with the full pitched roof. So these were the suggestions that we're coming up with, and I'm just looking for some feedback as to what direction you're thinking is better to head. Just let me know your thoughts.
Okay, thoughts? Thoughts, anybody?
I'm a little confused on what's going to be shorter.
So if you look at the cross-section on Part B, the standing height of the wall on both sides is higher than the cross-section of A. Because of the fact that this is a full pitched roof, if the top point will be the same height regardless, so because this slopes the entire length, this wall on the far left and right is actually down almost a foot. If you can see that from the cut.
That's not the one you want. You want the
No,
flat.
I want option B is what we're proposing.
And is that sidewall then still the same or less too?
This sidewall is a little bit higher up as a result of the flat roof. But because if we went with the point, then it just lowers everything down.
Reagan.
I think would need to see renderings of this from Street View to understand how visible this is going to be from just the regular public way.
Yeah.
Right. From the renderings that we've done, it's not visible at the street level. It is visible, the roof appurtenance is a little bit visible from 25 Maplewood at the third story, and I actually have renderings of that.
But there are lots of places, you know, it's not just in front of the building. Obviously, you can't see it from standing in front of the building because it's right there, but there are different, I would want to know, like, from different angles where this might be visible, because it's next to a huge parking lot, so
Right.
it's going to be visible from afar.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be visible because part of that town is, you know, higher up on the hill. So if you're at the old library, you're going to see all of this.
Right.
You know, if you're at the beginning of Vaughan Mall, you're probably still going to be able to see a portion of it maybe, but maybe not as much.
I would, if you're walking on Vaughan Mall, I don't think so, but you're right, from the Worth parking lot, from Jimmy's, you will see some of it, and that's partly the reason that we're looking to option B, because of the fact that if the symmetry between the roof appurtenance that's approved and this will make it look like one continuous piece or unit. But we can provide that, that's.
Okay, because it is a large mass that we're adding to the top of this building. That is a pretty simple building that originally had a flat roof. So it would be something that is, if highly visible, would be out of character, in my opinion, with the building.
I'm taking this from a different point of view. We're saying, oh, we might see it. I'm worried that you won't see it, because to me it adds a more, right now, what you're proposing is a more historic gesture for the building by placing a cap on it than a flat roof. So for me, I have no problem if you see it. I actually think that it's a positive to see it. And it's a lot different character mass-wise for a glass top than, say, something solid. I think the all glass is the way to go. I think the glass with the flat top is more like, it speaks of a language of sunrooms off a building.
We were looking at some examples of prefab structures that we could use as design characteristics. So yes, we would be looking to something to give a historical flavor to it.
Right.
And even the black top of the roof will be all a green roof system, so that it would look almost like a park as opposed to a flat black roof.
So I would just say that here's an opportunity to really put a beautiful top on this building. We're awfully concerned about the flat top situation occurring all in the north end, and here's a great opportunity. I want to see this thing, and I think for what you're proposing for examples are beautiful. So for me, this is I'm not looking to avoid seeing it. I think you need to expose it, let it shine, and do a great job with it.
Thank you.
Yes, somebody.
I'll go. I know, obviously when an applicant comes back and everyone has to add more, I'm a little like, why wasn't this part of the first applicant? But I understand things change, and sometimes that's the only constant.
Yeah, the only constant is change, you're absolutely right.
I will say, without this, it almost is like the flat roof is what we tore down at that location. That's what, with the whale wall, that was, I prefer option A out of the two options. But I think this might actually be somewhat of an addition where we're improving the building and not rebuilding what was there before that was not deemed valuable enough to save, But if we had to choose between A or B, I would go more A. I think it's more clear lines and.
Karen.
I'm just concerned about the mass on the roof, and it was going to be the open area. And there was just that one building in there that was for the utilities, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's almost, I don't know what percentage of the roof now is being taken over by that?
Of that structure, I could get the calculation, but I believe it was still under 30% of the total roof, not obviously the roof of just the historic building, if you will, but of the total roof was about 30%, but we could get that calculation.
Yeah, okay, I guess I'm just curious about that, and it's almost like adding a partial floor up there. So what are the heights that we're dealing with in that?
Well, can I jump in quick? So this will need zoning relief, and to Rich's comment earlier about, not having this in there the first time, they did. They had a different design. I would characterize it as very contemporary. More like the back of Jimmy's was the design that went to the BOA. I don't think they came here first, and they got denied. So this has to go back. They'll have to deal with the repetitive petition issue. But I can tell you from my maybe coaching from the side and listening and looking at their data, either model will virtually be invisible from any street around this property. The setback on that roof is 26, 28 feet. You'll be lucky to see the edge of the angled piece looking up. I honestly think, for what it's worth, since I'm talking, that the so-called Dan Brown Clubhouse that was approved, that big thing that's connecting the two buildings, is going to look pretty awkward without this. And I think, this is a roof deck. It's going to get used. It's going to have noise. The noise now will be attenuated with the walls. I think it's a great skyline element. I'm not here to just pitch for these guys, but they spent a lot of time on this. We've worked with a lot of the neighbors on this second cut at the design. I have a preference for one over the other, but I'm going to keep it to myself. But I think it's a great way to tie those two awkward appurtenances that are there, the stairwell and the so-called clubhouse, together, and diminish in a pretty significant way some of the externalities of the use up there. It's a big deck, and they're going to use this apparently as a cafeteria and a meeting space. So seems like a good move to me.
Margot, we haven't heard from you.
I am always thinking about the mass, but this is a big roof. I am interested to know how much of the old building that this is taking up. I like the idea of spanning between the two appurtenances because they always seemed a little bit awkward to me. Right now, I don't have a preference for either one of these structures. I think because there's just not enough detail. The mass and the shape of either one of them, they're kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I think it really comes down more to issues of fenestration and materials and so on. The issues of setbacks that apply, that are in the purview of the BOA, not really going to touch those. I think I have concerns, but I think I see enough positive to move this on to another iteration.
So I'll just get the last little pitch in here. I don't see the wall height difference that you're saying. When I'm looking at the cross sections, and I know this is crudely drawn,
Yeah.
you have a nano wall, and you have a beam of looks to be 12 to 15 inches above the nano wall. And then you have the roof coming up a bit shy of the dormer on the clubhouse. And on the first iteration, on A, A looks lower.
So, you're right. In A, this point is almost at the top, level with the appurtenance. And if you look over here, you can actually see just by counting almost the clapboards down, there's like 3
Yeah.
here. Whereas in this design, this roof is actually shy of the appurtenance, and it's only down 2 on this side. So it's literally 6,
So
8 inches.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there is a, but
Okay.
that's because this is down a little bit. So if you add the 2, if I bring that up so that it's at the same height as this one,
No.
then it would be about a foot.
So, I mean, it's only 4 or 5 inches lower on the sidewalls, A, and I prefer A. I'm wondering, you've given examples, is this going to be a classic greenhouse type look, or is this going to be totally contemporary?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm looking for advice. What we're showing here is kind of some ideas that we're going with. These are prefab structures that we
Yeah.
would be able to just marry right into the roof appurtenance.
Right.
But I'm looking for some guidance from this group to say which direction do you think is a better approach to go down?
If it were anywhere else but on top of this roof, I would say I would want to see the classic details, the Victorian type of details. But because of this location up here, and the fact that some of us have problem with the massing, that possibly aluminum and glass is going to melt in the best. That's my personal opinion.
John, could I
Yes,
just
Mark?
just add? What you're going to want to do also, and here's another aspect of looking at this, is you're going to have a lot of solar gain in this structure, regardless of the option. You're going to want to work with a mechanical engineer to capture that solar gain, and you can use it throughout the building. You talk about a way, this is a passive solar system right here.
Yeah,
Good
So-
point, yeah.
it's going to cook.
What I'm saying is, make the positive of it. Here's a chance. This is not a high-tech solar. This is a passive solar
Passive solar.
that's been done for hundreds of years, and look at it that way.
Well, it's either that or they use that type of glass that the glass changes color, similar to your eyeglasses. Anybody else want to get in? I'm sorry, Dan?
I just had a question, but now I have, and you answered it well. I too, like number 1, we've seen so many flat roofs forever. It's nice to see a little peak. It's nice to see a little action. And then hopefully you can shade inside that area. But I like the peak look to it.
Well,
I'm sorry, you said something about hiding mechanicals?
Right. So the thought process was that we're going to need obviously air conditioning in this for the summertime and stuff like that. So how we arrange the ductwork to go inside here, because it's all the mechanicals will start from the appurtenance side, and then whether it's with round ducts that are would be up here, and then my lighting would be up here as well. So if I went with this full pitched roof, there's nothing saying that this top section could be all metal and then the glass be the next 2 sections too. So that could be a way around it. So there's all kinds of options that I could do with that.
Well, I'm not responsible for saying yes or no about how you run your HVAC and stuff like that, but personally, I find it sort of disappointing that you're putting people up in that absolutely beautiful location, and then you're sealing them in like a train with hermetically sealed windows.
Well, it's not going to be fully, there is going to be doors on this side to open to a deck and a green area out here. So there will be one side that will be open, absolutely. So we can get natural air to come through on this side.
But not cross ventilate. I think Martin has a really good point here, is that you have an opportunity to use old-fashioned technologies, cross breezes and things, think Gaudi, the columns that, pull air up and
Yeah.
distribute the air without having to run as much mechanical. If you seal it up and you just have one side where the wind may or may not pass through, you're just going to increase your bills, and you're going to seal your people in when you really want them to have an opportunity to be out in the beautiful air. But that's a personal preference.
No, that's a very good point. I know that part of the back is going to enclose the mechanical units, but there would be an option for at least part of it that we could look at doing something, even if it's just a higher window as opposed to a full height window.
Or louvers.
Right.
I think you have lots of opportunities to play with a combination of old and modern technology with regard to the cold and the heat that you'll experience in both of
Right.
these.
Yep.
Good luck.
Anyone else? No last comments? Okay. Anybody in the public like to speak on this?
You can, yeah.
Please introduce yourself.
My name's David Adams. I live at 210 Gate Street. In preparation for this meeting, I did a bit of a walk, and I see two things happening here. One is that it seems to be, at least the way that I understand the plan, somewhat disjointed from the building in as much as it's set back dramatically from the edges of the building. And so I don't believe that there's going to be a confusion as to what this is on that building or what happened to that building. So that's a plus to me. And the other thing is I did a tour of the parking garage. I've got this new knee, and so I can go up and down stairs all day long. And I have to say that this is probably be the most interesting damn thing that one can see from the parking garage if it passes. And I very much would encourage you to promote this. Thank you.
Yes. There is an elevator, you know, Mr.
I'm Barry Heckler. I'm president of the board of directors of 25 Maplewood, the Provident Condominium Association. And we have been included in the conversations leading up to this through the efforts of Nick and Dean. And we think it would be quite a positive for their North America headquarter building, for them to be able to use their deck year-round. And if they can enclose it, that's the end result of that. And I think it would be a positive for all of the neighbors, not just 25 Maplewood, for the enclosure to occur, because as Nick said earlier, it cuts down on noise, lighting, and everything that goes along with just an open-air outdoor deck. For them, enclosure would be a real plus, and I think for all the neighbors, it would be a real plus. We're sort of partial to what you all have been talking about, the glass roof with the hip roof type instead of the shed type, but I'll leave that all to you and see what goes. But I think that for everything else that they're doing there with their North America headquarter building, Novacure should be able to have a structure like this that they can use year-round. And I think it would be quite a plus, as I said, for the neighbors as well as Vaughan Mall. It's going to be quite an improvement for the utilization of Vaughan Mall. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Another thing that I just thought of listening to him speak is in the wintertime, of course, December and January and February, it's dark, it's cold. It would be nice to see something on top of a roof that has some lights on in action. I assume they'll have potted plants and all that stuff, because one of the best things that I've noticed on Maplewood, and I believe it's your building, is somebody has a big Christmas tree that they put, that is the greatest thing. Thank you. Because that is so bright up there, and it is so nice to see that for 6 weeks, you know, and I think those things are important. That's all I'll say. So, I'm sorry.
Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I have some serious questions about this. First, this looks like what was presented in the past, only it looks bigger, because before there wasn't the little Dan house, but now there's the Dan house, and then there's going to be this new, whatever you want to call it. So my concern is although it was shown as open space, it is a much larger structure than what was there originally, what was originally proposed, which was denied, if I remember correctly. when I looked at the drawings, I noticed that it's definitely 20 feet from the edge on one side, but the back side looks a lot closer. So I think that math needs to be done. I don't think they meet the 50% that maximum they're allowed to have, because they're on one building, and that's got to be measured from there. So they have that little thing in there. I am concerned about the windows opening from what I know about sound. So environmentally, I like the idea of cross breezes, no air conditioning, all that good stuff. But realistically, it's a glass building. I have a house that sits in the sun all afternoon long. And in the summer, I just close my shades and my thermal curtains because it gets so hot in that room. In the winter, I open it all up, but it's hot. And this is going to be extremely hot in the summer. And the problem with opening the windows is it's great environmentally, but it will allow the noise to be tunneled now. Because before the noise was open, it would bounce around. But once you put that building around it, it's going to create a sound bouncing ability. So what was a bunch of people sitting outside and that noise kind of evaporating into the larger area is now going to be enclosed, and it is going to make it louder. So perhaps leaving the windows closed may be a better option. I do feel like that this is like a backhanded game that we're playing here, because originally it was proposed with an outdoor community space. Then they filled it with 9,000 square feet of building, and now we're getting nothing, but they're getting the top. So I just feel like it's a backhanded thing. Maybe they weren't involved in it in the beginning. I know it changed hands a couple of times, but I am uncomfortable with that. But I don't know if the historic district has anything to do with that. But I do feel like that the structure itself is really too large. It's a nice design, but I think it's too big for the top of that building. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, is there anybody online?
Not with their hand up.
Okay, so we're going to need a motion to bring this back.
Do you want to summarize what somebody want to
No, I
summarize?
don't, not right now,
Somebody
thank
else?
you. Vice Chair.
Because it's going to the BOA next with
Yeah, right.
one of these options.
Okay. I think that generally you have support for a type of pavilion. The issue of mass is a little bit of a concern, and some clarification on some of the measurements would be necessary. But what that's going to be may or may not be affected by the BOA decision. So having us weigh in detail at this point really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think nobody was upset with the suggestions that you put out here, and I think you also heard that there might even be support for something that's maybe a little more greenhouse versus pavilion, but that might end up being what suits your needs as an organization versus what we're looking for. But I didn't hear anybody say absolutely no to either a pavilion a la what you have here, or the possibility of a greenhouse. More like a greenhouse, I should say. Did I miss anybody's points?
I don't know if I missed it, but I think the most important thing for him to take away is whether option A or option B is the preference, because he's not presenting both to the BOA. Did you say that?
I think we heard support for both, and that's why I did not.
Okay.
I mean, I like option A personally. I think it's, I think if something is gonna go there, that is the
Recap,
cleanest looking thing. And as even some of the comments were made that, I didn't
Because
think of the view from the parking garage.
Can't submit two, and if he submits one and you guys choose the second one, then he's got to go back to the BOA. So he needs some clarity on whether it's a hip or a flat roof.
It seemed like
Go
there were,
around.
Just,
that's,
That's-
we've had
that's kinda
issues
like
with straw
voting.
voting before. It sounded to me like there were more people who were in favor of the gable instead of the.
The hip.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agree with Dave.
And the other thing I think we'd like to see then is some views, as you suggested,
Yes.
from the parking lot. And
Yeah, just to
Absolutely.
understand.
From the
Once we have the
lawn
height.
wall and all that, when you get that.
Once we have everything situated and we know where we're going, yes.
That's what the purpose of this is.
Did we give you enough information?
Yes.
Are we closing or continuing while they're at the BOA?
Do you expect, if you prevail at the BOA with the HIP design, do you expect to come back here and have another work session, or do you feel comfortable with what you've got preparing
I
for
think
a
with the
public
feedback
hearing?
that I've gotten, I have enough that we can present something that, for your approval.
Okay, so you can close the,
Okay.
I move that we close this work session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Dean.
thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
When are you going there?
What's that?
July, right?
Oh, I think you and I need to talk, because what we're looking to do, I don't know if 2 weeks is enough time to actually have that application ready by the 28th with all the feedback that I have here. And I want to make sure that everything looks good, so I think separately, you and I can talk about what's the best time frame for that. Because we want to make sure that we
Time is of
provide
the
everything.
essence.
I know, time is of the essence. But an extra month, and I can prepare it better.
I understand.
In 2 weeks, that's going to be very rushed, and I just don't feel that that would be an adequate presentation, but we can talk about that, and
I'll help you whenever you are ready.
appreciate that.
Thank you for including your neighbors.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Alrighty, so now
Thank you all for your time.
we come to the last thing, our surveyed properties.
So,
How do we want to attack this? Margot, I'm going to turn the entire gavel over to you.
okay,
There's
thank
the
you.
Gavel.
Got it.
I assume sitting down here.
I think that's fine. So,
You're going to come back?
7:30.
Dave, yes, join us.
Right. We're staying together. Seriously.
When did you want to leave?
I mean, that.
How long do you think this is taking?
Not long. Not long. Okay. So, this is just sort of a report out on what happened. I don't have any results for you yet because we're still waiting for some things. So, about a month ago, there were 5 or 7 of us walking around downtown looking at 11 buildings, all of which that had been either built or majorly renovated and changed in the course of the past 18 to 20 years. They were mostly large and commercial type buildings, but there were 1 or 2 that were not. The conversations were very interesting, ranging from materials to mass to cornices and history from Dave Adams and Nick Cracknell as to what happened when something went from, a plan that was like this to became that, to became that. So I think that the newer members of the commission had an opportunity to learn a little bit about the history of the fabric of that neighborhood, and that was very valuable. I had drawn up in a completely unscientific survey based on our design criteria, and I'm still waiting for 2 people to return those that they've promised they will get back, and 1 person who hasn't promised me that they'll get it back to me, but they might still. Collating the data is going to take a while because if you think about it, it's 5 people responding to a dozen questions times 11 buildings. So it's just a lot of data input. And then what we'll be looking at is probably just aggregate data. And then if you didn't keep a copy of your survey, we'll give it back to you, and then we'll have an opportunity perhaps to meet, and any notes that you made about your reflections on the buildings, we can share at that
These
time.
aren't anonymous, huh?
The results will be anonymous, everything just in columns and marked A, B, C, D, whatever, but when we have an opportunity to talk, people can just reflect on their thoughts. I realized as I started to try to answer my own questions that I designed, some of them perhaps were not asked as well as they could be, and they were sometimes very difficult to answer. So I think that it was the first crack at it, and I think that if we decide to do it again, I would really love to hear feedback from people on which questions were just really difficult to answer because they weren't asked a certain way, or there would be a better way to approach the question of how well did it meet that particular design criteria. So that could be a topic of discussion I could have with people offline. And I would welcome that feedback. I hope that people enjoyed it. I hope that it was valuable. I think particularly for those of us who are not professionals, like Dave and Martin and people who are builders and work with plans all the time, it takes a while for us to understand the plan and what actually appears, a year and a half or two later, and then how well does it play out, over time. So this is really more for educating us and moving forward and learning from the past is sort of the way I look at it. If anybody has any reflections or comments or thoughts on the site walk or the survey, just valuable, not valuable, would like to do it again, thought it was a complete waste of time, completely open to your feedback. Dan?
First, I'd like to thank you for all your work. It's quite a project. I think it was our first shot, and certainly, like you said, there'll be some adjustments. I have no idea what half those designs or what type of building they are going to be or what. I guess that's Martin's job. But it was fun. It was interesting to see, and luckily I didn't approve any of them, so I could be very passive about it. But thanks.
I'll say that I'm sorry that I couldn't stay for the whole site walk with the group, because I think that some of the most interesting and productive things that we can do to understand what has happened in the past is when we all discuss it together. So, I can sit there and say yes, 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 no, yes. But when I hear somebody else's viewpoint on it, or somebody else's opinion, or, question, like, why did it end up like this, then, you can understand the building and the process in a new way. Mm-hmm. So I'm sad that I didn't get to make the whole thing. I only got to talk about like 2 buildings with everybody, but and that was more meaningful to me. So hopefully, if we do it again in the future, we can actually like really plan ahead and make sure that everybody can be there, or something like that, or even like you said, just here talking about things. We can show images and talk about stuff together.
Great.
I'd like to say that, because I'm an old retired guy that has, a fair amount of interest in the topic, but the more time that the commissioners get to spend together, even though we come to these meetings supposedly as individuals with our own views and opinions, the more time we spend together, the more carefully adjusted our opinions and can be, and the more easily we can communicate with each other without having to go through that shock of what the hell did he just say? I thought it was very useful.
I agree. I think it was very useful. I was sad I couldn't join everyone on the walk. Nick was nice enough to meet me and give me some guidance. But I think just the value of going from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional and walking it around and seeing the little fine details that you would miss on a piece of paper, and how it fits into that, that actual property. But I think it was very helpful. But thank you, Margot.
Thank you. Okay. Martin?
You know where I stand on this. I am not contributing. I just feel like the way we start this out, we say it's a quasi-judicial, and that for us to sort of kick around ideas outside of the meetings could be a bad thing. It could be.
So what if we do it in a meeting? Can we meet here and talk about it, and it's okay?
I don't know. I just, I had a problem with, some of the questions and the way we went about it. I'm I'm a little worried about what someone could do with this report.
So I'm not worried about what people can do with the report, but I agree with Martin. I think you know that from the very beginning. I was really afraid of this. the fact that we're all together looking at projects and discussing decisions that have already been made. One little comment I'd like to make is, this is just a little aside, and this would go back to when David and I were on the board together. But there were so many discussions about historic homes and what was being done to storefronts and things that I remember going out and researching moldings, and so I made up a sheet of paper with all the moldings on there and descriptions and all this sort of stuff. I found it today when I was looking through my minutes, and I said, wow, what's this? We don't use this. Nobody cares about that kind of detail on building. And so what, consequently, all we've really doing is just, we're looking at big contemporary structures and trying to say, well, do they have a historical context, or are we going to make them brick or not make them brick? And why is that place so popular down at the end of Maplewood Avenue with the Heinemann's Book Company? My wife likes that, and I ask her, why do you like it? She says it's totally, the design of it is just all over the place. And she said, I don't know, I just like it. So that kind of thing is something that we're up against, the emotions and such of it. But otherwise, I would say, thank you for all of your effort and, that you put into this. And certainly don't stop.
I think I appreciate the feedback, and I understand, I think, Martin, where you're coming from. One of the reasons I wanted to collate the data and just put it in numbers is because that way it's not us individually scoring anything. None of these projects are active projects. They're all built. They're all completed. I think that even people who've approved a project will say that what actually gets built is not always exactly what they saw. So, for someone to say, well, I wouldn't have approved that, may have to do not with what was actually on the blueprint, but what was actually built, and if they were different. So criticizing a building as it ended up being built is not necessarily criticizing the decision to make it. But it is an opportunity to learn from the details of buildings. And I know that when we had an opportunity to walk around Portwalk Place, I had never really looked, I knew there were things I didn't like about the building, but it wasn't until Dave pointed out certain things about the relationship of the cornices and those big heavy things up top, and I thought, I think I'm going to spend a little more time looking at cornices on the next couple of approvals that I look at, because I was looking at fenestrations, or I was looking at certain other things, and I hadn't really put two and two together and said, those cornices really make a huge difference in that building. So for those of us who are not trained in architecture and building, this has really been, for me, very, very useful. So any feedback anybody wants to give me on, I hated that question. That question was impossible to answer. And yes, I think asking people what the style was when we were covering the modern section of town was perhaps not fair. We did get some very, very inventive names for some of these styles, I have to say. Yes.
I would say,
Thank you.
Just having looked over what you sent out, I would have a lot of trouble with, do you like this building? You had
Yes.
down there. And
Yep.
I remember when I first got on the board, somebody came up to me and says, Mr. Wyckoff, we don't care if you like this building or not. You have to make a decision on the context and this and that. I won't say who that person is.
Actually, that is exactly why I put that question there, because I wanted to see if there was a correlation between what people answered, whether they like it or not, and whether they felt it met the design criteria. Because if somebody says, I like the...
Depth of this.
Yeah. So, if somebody had ticked all the boxes, yes, it absolutely met all the criteria, but was able to say, but no, I don't like it, that's the sort of objectivity that we want to see in
Are you
people.
going to
So
give
that's actually
numbers
why.
to, people's decisions or something? Are you going to have like scores, or is that?
So I'm going to work with Nick on this because he's probably better at all this
Yeah.
as I do, but the way it sits right now, and it may not be how it comes out in the end, is that each building has A through B, C, D up top. The people are up the top, and the questions are down the side, and then the numbers run down. And the way the numbering worked, except for one question that I flipped backwards, the lower the number, the less positive the response is to the question. And so if you add all the way down among those 12 questions, the lower the score, the less successful the building was against the criteria of the questions that were asked. And so you can take a look at what individuals rated the building, and the building might have a wide range, where somebody thought that it was, just a couple here or there, and somebody else rated it all 5s, and so the numbers are very disparate. But then across, you can see what the average number is for a particular question. And that's really as sophisticated as I've gotten right now. There's probably all sorts of cross correlations you can make, and I'll be interested to see what happens when you take the whole mass together, and
But
see what
should that-
happens.
Should that be out there in a
That's-
meeting?
That's why we'll be talking.
Who is this for? Is this for us to be better commissioners? Is this for future applicants to have as a reference? Is it for future historic commissions? Is it for?
It is for us.
I think it's for you.
It's for us.
Yeah.
And we have not made any promises to anybody that we're going to be putting these numbers out, and I raised, I think when we were enjoying Dave's hospitality, whether we wanted it to be anonymous, and people really didn't have I think I got a mixed response, so we went with anonymous.
Yeah. I feel uncomfortable.
Definitely.
I know I recognize Martin and yours worry about this. One thing that Nick said earlier is this was probably a unique decade of all new buildings. And hopefully that's over, and we can go back to HDC working with historic buildings. And we need to look at,
We can get your molding, get my
right, right. Get to the point where you can go back to how we rehab and how we look at old buildings with a little basis of what we put in between in some of the empty spaces. Yeah, so I think this was a unique decade. I think it's pretty much in the past, so that this idea of quasi this and that, hopefully is in the past, and we can get back to
Well,
future.
it'll always be a quasi-judicial meeting.
Yeah, it's been a 20-year run. The first big building in downtown Portsmouth, to my knowledge, was 1999.
20 years.
The 100 Market Street, that's when
okay.
that started permitting. And, you got popovers at different orders here, the bottom of State Street before the 12 years.
Sheridan.
Well, the Sheridan
Was
in
in the
84,
80s.
yeah,
Sheridan.
being the first one out by itself in an island.
Yeah.
But not much happened in the North End from 84 to 2006, 5,
Oh, yeah, right.
Garden Hilton.
Hilton.
The parade building was there until 2015.
We can call this the Cracknell period.
Yeah.
Lucky
era.
me.
Architecture.
Not what I
Well,
really
I mean,
wanted to do.
so I was at La Coretta on Sunday after the concert at the music hall. And sitting there, having Mexican food and a nice margarita, and I was looking out across Hanover Street. So I'm right there, and I'm looking up Port Walk Place, the street. I'm looking to my left is that Row 24 restaurant building with a big giant column on the corner, which I remember. And
Huggable column.
and I like it. It's a huggable column. And on the right-hand side is the, 110?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Who names a restaurant?
that makes it so much better than it was as the BBC, if you remember.
Yeah.
Because the BBC went all over the place, and they tried to take the whole first floor of the,
I actually like the facade better on the.
well,
BBC.
anyways, I like the 110. So I'm sitting there looking at the,
Fill that out.
I'm looking at the 110. I'm looking over at the historic San Francisco-style building that was approved when you were still on the board. and then the Hilton Hotel off in a distance. I'm looking at Hanover Street, and I says, this is just nice. This is, you know, we should have got something to be proud of.
Likeable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops. But that's what I'm saying. You know, I'm proud of a lot of the stuff. I'm proud of most of it. I'm proud of our city, and I want to continue. And unfortunately, I'm going to disagree with you because what's happening in the future is more young people are gravitating to the urban centers. 30 years ago, everybody wanted to move to Greenland, have 2 acres and a riding lawnmower. Nobody wants that anymore.
What are you disagreeing on?
His idea that the new construction is
Well, there's no real estate.
over.
Yeah,
That's the
there's no
point.
real estate.
They can find things to,
Well, there'll be some bank parking lots,
They-
but
they-
you've got
they
a
can
very
find things
small
to
amount
tear down.
of stuff. Well, that's your job to keep it.
it's always,
72 units down at HEB.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Outside the district, there'll be lots of what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that till I could see what HEB has there now. They say there's going to be less permeable surfaces, but in case nobody's noticed or anybody hasn't noticed, in the last year, there have been more sightings of, in Portsmouth, bobcats, coyotes. I had a doe.
And a fox.
Yeah, you had a buck. I had a doe in my backyard. I get up at 6:15. I look out in the yard and I go, "Ah, man, that's a big dog," you know? So everything is coming from the hospital area and the Great Swamp and all this stuff. And they're all coming into the city right now. And part of the reason is because we've allowed them, and it's not us, but, you know, to go out on Peverly Hill Road and stuff, and bash down all the trees and build 100 units. And I don't know. I would rather have it downtown, but that's me.
Better go up.
Well, I'm not against going up. I don't want to see skyscrapers, but I can't for the life of me figure out where this 50 feet or where these numbers even came from.
You know, the Sheridan was a 10-story building before they built it? And the urban renewal plan had a 10-story building on the Sheridan site.
I've seen that picture.
Somebody came in, it was 100 feet, and the maximum height in downtown from the 20s to 1980 was 100 feet, and you could get to 120 feet if you tapered the building. 50 years. And then in 1980, somebody came in to do that 10-story building on the Sheridan, and people freaked out and changed it to 60 feet. And that stuck until 2014 when we did the form-based coding and brought everything, you know, to a different level depending on the street or the block. Everything was 60 feet down. 60 feet everywhere, and the CBA was the north end, and the CBB downtown, that's only 10 years ago.
For a little while, it was 35 feet from Ms. Kennedy.
No, 45.
Yeah. I
45.
thought
Three
it
and a half
was-
stories, 45 feet.
Oh,
That's how 4664
Yeah.
Maplewood got approved, but.
I'm going, well, a lot of peaks of so many people's houses are 45 feet.
We took away with the character-based zoning 1/3 of the development rights in downtown, volume-wise.
Yeah.
1/3. And we're still, you know, now you got 1 out of 10 people complaining about scale, mass, and volume instead of the 9 that were here 10 years ago. It was nonstop.
Yeah, it used to
So
be a good show.
it's a better, we're going the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Get ready for the McIntyre.
Yeah,
You'll probably see that in January.
really? Has it been sold?
No, the end of the summer,
No.
September.
Yeah.
But then they'll go into design and
Yeah.
next year.
Which one?
McIntyre will probably be here next year.
All right, we're still gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah, you
Before you
will.
get to the whole
That's a
buildings.
beast. All right.
Long
So
meetings.
you just ran.
Those will
from
be
the
very
Uh,
McIntyre.
long.
That was it.
Yeah, I love the McIntyre. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Take a